Smart, charming, cunning, and ruthless, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel was one of the most infamous and feared gangster of his day. Born Benjamin Siegelbaum on February 28, 1906, to Russian Jewish immigrants in Brooklyn, New York, Ben resented the poverty that surrounded him and vowed to rise above it. He sought fame, fortune, and power, and by the age of 14, Ben Siegel, as he had others call him, had already started his own gang. Employing tactics that were a foreshadowing of what was to come, Siegel began his gang by offering, in return for regular payments for his services, to, quote, protect pushcart peddlers' carts and goods from frequent burglaries and vandalism that plagued them. The unsuspecting and penniless cart owners would almost always initially turn down Siegel's offer. Flying into a rage, Siegel would douse the carts in kerosene, light them on fire, and demand payment. The peddlers, having little choice, would pay Siegel, falling under his protection. Fellow gang members named Siegel Bugsy in reference to his notoriously quick and violent temper, as he would be crazy as a bedbug. As one of Bugsy's companions would later recall, he was like a pistol when he got mad. Although the nickname Bugsy was meant by his fellow gang members as a compliment, it reminded Siegel of his impoverished youth he had always tried to leave behind, and loathed it. Anyone who called him Bugsy to his face risked violence. As a teenager, Siegel met and formed an alliance with future syndicate leader Meyer Lansky. Known as the Bugs and Meyer Mob, the gang operated out of Manhattan's Lower East Side. Working mainly in bootlegging, Siegel and Lansky's gang eventually folded into the Syndicate, a loosely bound organization that unified mobsters from various national gangs. A separate enforcement branch of the Syndicate was created simply for carrying out murders. Siegel was one of the founding members and chief operators of the faction known as Murder Incorporated. By some estimates, he murdered more than 30 men, not including those whose murders he arranged, or those he killed in tandem with fellow Syndicate enforcers. In 1929, Siegel married Esther Krakauer, with whom he had 2 daughters. Siegel was a notorious womanizer, however, and the marriage would eventually end in divorce. In the mid-1930s, with much of Murder Inc. being prosecuted, Lansky sent Siegel out of town. In Los Angeles, he worked as a bagman, collecting the growing skim for Sidney Korshak in Chicago. He worked with the area's wire services, as well as Syndicate's enormous narcotics trade route through Mexico, and helped set up new circuits with Al Capone's Transamerica Wire Services. By 1942, the Syndicate's wire operations was earning them $500,000 a day. While working for Lansky in Southern California, Siegel also pursued his own dreams. He had always wanted to act, and when he arrived in California, he met up with his childhood friend from Brooklyn, actor George Raft. Through Raft, Siegel became friends with many of the biggest names in Hollywood at the time. Actress Jean Harlow was the godmother to Siegel's daughter, and he frequently threw lavish parties at his Beverly Hills home. Siegel was extremely concerned with appearances. Class, that's the only thing that counts in life, he once said. Class. Without class and style, a man's a bum, and he might as well be dead. Famed for his flashy dress style, Siegel bought the most expensive, tailored houndstooth jackets and silk shirts money could buy. His hair, which he was deathly afraid of losing, was always perfectly coiffed. At night, Siegel would use face creams and a chin strap to keep his skin taut, and he tried every cream and elixir on the market to thicken his increasingly thinning hair. In the early 1940s, Lansky had begun to catch wind of the economic possibilities of building in Las Vegas, and he sent Siegel to survey the burgeoning city. Billy Wilkerson, gambler, drunk, raconteur, owner of Ciro's in Los Angeles, and founder of The Hollywood Reporter, was planning to build a new resort on Highway 91. He was desperately in need of money, and Siegel, looking to establish a hotel for the Syndicate, took over the construction of the hotel. Using funds pooled by the Syndicate, Siegel imagined a hotel that was a far cry from the frontier-themed resorts that populated Las Vegas at the time. The hotel was designed after the resorts in Havana, in which Lansky and the Syndicate had been investing. Siegel's obsession with appearances extended to the construction of his hotel. He was constantly improving the blueprints for the resort, adding extra amenities, more expensive furnishings, and even private sewage pipes to each and every room. Siegel's pursuit of class knew no bounds. It was soon discovered, however, that Siegel lacked Lansky's business acumen. The contractors he hired to complete the hotel fleeced him, often charging twice for shipments of materials. The combination of Siegel's ambition and business sloppiness sent the construction severely over budget, blowing up to some $6 million. As the cost spiraled, Siegel's superiors in the Syndicate began to get concerned. They suspected Siegel was skimming money, and he began to put pressure on him. but Siegel assured them that the price of this hotel would soon be overshadowed by the profits he anticipated would come pouring in. The extravagant hotel, dubbed the Flamingo, after a nickname of Virginia Hill, the woman with whom Siegel had his most famous and enduring relationship. After months of hype, the hotel held its grand opening on December 26, 1946. The Flamingo represented a change in Las Vegas establishments and created quite a stir. After Siegel had taken the construction over from Wilkerson, the hotel had almost completely been financed with syndicate money and a large loan from Walter Cosgriff's Continental Bank of Utah. Its modern decor was also a drastic change from the Old West frontier theme that was prevalent in Las Vegas at the time. But everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Although Siegel had chartered private planes to fly his Hollywood friends to the gala, bad weather forced most of his stars to remain at home. Many of the rooms were unfinished, forcing guests to spend the night elsewhere. Worse, the casino lost money, and within its first month of opening, the Flamingo closed. After Meyer Lansky pleaded with irate syndicate leaders to give his friend a second chance, Siegel was given a few months to fix the Flamingo and begin generating profits. After borrowing more money from fellow mobsters and making renovations, Siegel finally reopened the Flamingo in March of 1947. Desperate for good press, Siegel hired 34-year-old Hank Greenspun to produce what was essentially a public relations column entitled The Flamingo Chatter in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. By the end of the first month back in business, the hotel was finally turning a profit. But it was too late for Siegel. He'd either killed or had killed a hood named James Reagan who ran a race wire, then tried to divert the profits of the race wire to cover his expenses. On the night of June 20th, 1947, as Siegel sat with his associate Alan Smiley in Virginia Hill's Beverly Hills home reading the Los Angeles Times, an unknown assailant fired at him through the window with a .30 caliber M1 rifle, hitting him many times, including twice in the head. Some looked upon it as a cowardly approach, bushwhacking the formidable and weapons-proficient Siegel from a distance. No one was charged with killing Siegel, and the crime remains officially unsolved. One theory is that Siegel's death was a direct result of his excessive spending and possible theft of money from the mob. In 1946, a meeting was held with the board of directors of the syndicate in Havana, Cuba, so that Luciano, exiled in Sicily, could attend and participate. A contract on Siegel's life was a conclusion. Another theory is that Siegel was shot to death preemptively by Matthew Moose Panza, the lover of Sedway's wife, Bee, who went to Panza after learning that Siegel was threatening to kill her husband. Siegel apparently had grown increasingly resentful of the control Sedway, at the mob's behest, was exerting over Siegel's finances and planned to do away with him. Siegel's death certificate states that cause of death is homicide and the immediate cause as cerebral hemorrhage due to gunshot wounds of the head. Siegel was hit by several other bullets, including shots through the lungs. According to Floribel Muir, 4 of the 9 shots fired that night destroyed a white marble statue of Bacchus on a grand piano, and then lodged in the far wall. The day after Siegel's death, the Los Angeles Herald-Express carried a photograph on its front page from the morgue of Siegel's bare right foot with a toe tag. Although Siegel's murder occurred in Beverly Hills, his death thrust Las Vegas into the national spotlight as photographs of his lifeless body were published in newspapers throughout the country. It was mere minutes after Siegel died that syndicate leaders Davy Berman, Gus Greenbaum, and Morris Rosen walked in and took over the management of the Flamingo. The eventual success of the hotel spurred the development of the Strip and cemented the syndicate's increased investment into Las Vegas casino resorts. In a city that devoured people, Siegel's death ultimately didn't mean very much to the sordid city. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more of our Mafia TV series, please like and subscribe. Until next time, forget about it.